Okay, afternoon. This might seem a bit strange, but the snow and this is going to be in lieu of your lesson this afternoon, Lower 6 Macroeconomics. So there are two things to talk about today. The first one is the various types of unemployment, and then secondly, what are various costs of unemployment to society. So if we take the first element, which is the types of unemployment. Basically, there are four types of unemployment. The first one is called frictional unemployment. Frictional unemployment describes a situation where somebody is out of work because they're in between jobs. So this might occur when somebody's been in a job for a while. Maybe they decide to go and work for somebody else because they're offering them a higher salary or maybe more opportunities in terms of career development. And maybe they have about 2 or 3 months to kill before their new job starts. For that brief 2 or 3 month period, the person's considered to be frictionally unemployed. Obviously, this type of unemployment is short term. Therefore, policymakers don't view it as being a significant problem. However, policymakers will try to make the job market more efficient, and they'll try to do that by providing services like the job centre, so that people who maybe do find themselves out of work can quickly find alternative employment. So they're not in between jobs for too long. So you can minimise frictional unemployment that way by providing an effective service to unite people that want to buy labour with people who are in need of work. Okay, so that's the first type of unemployment, frictional unemployment, people that are between jobs. The second type of unemployment is seasonal unemployment. Again, this doesn't tend to be too much of a problem. Seasonal unemployment occurs because the demand for some products is seasonal. A good example would be the demand for days out at Legoland. At this time of the year, when the snow's on the ground, people are interested in going to theme parks and going down rides where they get completely soaking wet. So theme parks tend to close during the winter months. As a result, the people that work in theme parks in the summer are laid off during the winter months. That is an example of seasonal unemployment. Other examples of seasonal unemployment might be an ice cream seller who again finds themselves out of work in the winter months. From an ice cream manufacturer's point of view, they can minimise any seasonal unemployment, minimise the number of people that they're forced to lay off during the winter months by maybe trying to find export markets south of the equator. So there are things that manufacturers can do to try and alleviate seasonal demand and thus prevent seasonal unemployment. Third type of unemployment is structural unemployment. Structural unemployment is caused by an industry that goes into decline. The industry might be declining because it's not internationally competitive anymore. That could be down to low productivity, high wages, or a combination of the two. Industries can also decline just because the product that they produce has reached the end of its life cycle. Maybe consumer tastes have changed, maybe the product has become technologically obsolete. So an example of that might be that the people that got recently laid off at HMV. These days most people are not interested in buying music in a CD format. They prefer the versatility of a download. As a result, the market for CDs is in decline, so people that are employed making CDs or selling them at places like HMV are likely to lose their jobs, and that would be a good example of structural unemployment. Structural unemployment tends to be more of a problem because it can be quite long term. Also, if an industry declines, that can also lead to a town, a city or a county suffering from quite a pronounced economic decline too, if that particular area is a base for that industry. So a good example there would be job losses in South Wales caused by the decline of heavy industries like steel and coal mining. What policymakers tend to do there is to attract new businesses by offering grants, subsidies and tax breaks. So picking up again on South Wales, what happened there was that the government offered tax breaks to the likes of Toshiba and Honda to set up new industries in South Wales to employ the people that were made redundant when the iron and coal steel industries declined. So that's structural unemployment. The final type of unemployment is cyclical unemployment. Cyclical unemployment is unemployment caused by a lack of aggregate demand. It's Keynesian unemployment that's associated with recessions, periods when, for one reason or another, aggregate demand is very low. Because aggregate demand is low, firms don't sell as many products. Because firms don't sell as many products, they won't need to employ as many people. Firms will respond. They won't tend to employ people to produce things that are no longer selling. They don't want to build up unsold stocks, so they'll tend to make redundancies. When that happens, there's cyclical unemployment. Obviously, cyclical unemployment affects all sorts of industries across the economy. It's not just particular to one type of market, it's affecting the whole economy. As you know, to try and reduce that type of unemployment, if we're talking Keynesians, they would advocate policies that are designed to increase the level of aggregate demand. So that can be done in two ways. Through fiscal policy, you could run fiscal deficits, so that's when the government's planned government expenditure is greater than their tax income. And then secondly, slack monetary policy, cutting interest rates. That will encourage people to borrow rather than to save. It will also reduce fixed outgoings on things like mortgages, so that people's disposable income increases. As a result, provided they're not going to save anymore, you should see an increase in consumption. If people's mortgage repayments go down, they'll have more money to consume with. Okay, so those are the various types of unemployment. Moving over now to the costs of unemployment. There are various costs that you need to know about. The first cost of unemployment that's apparent is a loss of output. If you remember the production possibility curve diagram, to operate on the edge of the frontier, all factors of production must be fully utilised. One factor of production is, of course, labour. So if you have unemployment, then you're not utilising all of your scarce labour resources. So therefore, by definition, you must be operating at some point inside the production possibility curve, which basically means that your society is not maximising its output because it's wasting one of its four factors of production, labour. If output isn't being maximised, then neither can consumption. If consumption is not being maximised, then society's welfare is taking a hit. So that's the first cost of unemployment, a loss of output leading to a fall in consumption. A second cost of unemployment would be a cost to the government. If more people are unemployed, there'll be fewer people earning incomes. So therefore, there'll be fewer people paying income tax. So the government's tax income will fall because fewer people in work means fewer people paying income tax. Pretty simple. The second type of taxation, the income that will tend to drop, would be the indirect taxes, the taxes levied on expenditure. If people have lost their jobs and they'll lose their incomes, they might get some job seekers allowance, but the amount that they get from that would be a fraction of what they were previously earning, in all probability. As a result, people have less money to spend when they're unemployed, so they will be buying less goods and services. Less goods and services bought means less VAT revenue, and also less excise duty. You know, if people are buying things like cigarettes, alcohol, petrol, you know, they're also subject to excise duty as well as VAT. So lower tax revenues. Unemployment causes the government's tax revenues to fall. If people are spending less, then firms won't be making as much revenue. If revenues fall, profit falls. So the third type of taxation that will take a hit is corporation tax. Taxes on company profits. Generally, unemployment is bad for business, bad for profits, so the government will collect less in corporation tax. So on the other side of the fiscal equation, government expenditure, unemployment will tend to increase government expenditure. A couple of reasons why. The first one would be just job seekers allowance. If more people are unemployed, there'll be more people claiming unemployment benefit, so there'll be an increase there. It's often argued that unemployment is associated with rising levels of crime. If that is the case, then one would expect the government to have to spend more on police and law and order. So if you combine these two together, lower tax income rather, and greater government spending, the conclusion that you could draw is that the government's fiscal balance will tend to move towards deficit. So unemployment can cause problems in terms of the government's fiscal balance. The fiscal deficit will tend to rise, and you know, when you run fiscal deficits, you're going to add to the national debt. Why does that matter? Well, the government's got to pay interest on the national debt. If the national debt increases because you're running fiscal deficits, in future years, a greater proportion of your tax income will have to go out of the door again straight away in interest payments. That's a bit of a drag, because when the general public pays taxes, they expect those taxes to fund public services rather than funding interest repayments on debt. So that's a second cost then of unemployment to society. It tends to cause fiscal deficits. Third problem of unemployment could be, you could look at the cost of unemployment to the individuals that are affected themselves. Unemployment is obviously going to reduce the household incomes of those affected. As a result, they're going to be able to buy less goods and services. They might even be forced to move out of their home and maybe sell their house, or maybe even, you know, with younger people, maybe they're forced to move back in with parents. You know, certainly their material standard of living will fall if they're purchasing fewer goods and services because they've lost their income, because they've lost their job. So that one's fairly straightforward, a fall in the material standard of living. The second type of problem, you know, will be more of a hit to the non-material standard of living. People work for all sorts of different reasons. It's not just for earning an income. Of course, that's the main reason, but there are other reasons too. People's status and feelings of self-worth are often linked to the job that they do. So if you lose your job, you're not just losing your income, you're also losing maybe part of your identity. High levels of unemployment can cause problems such as